I've had the Ricoh GR III for a full year. Let's talk about it. This is going to be a long-term review on the Ricoh GR III for anyone out there that may be interested in picking one of these up, but they've heard some horror stories and they've heard some good things and they don't know how to filter out the differences. I've had this camera exactly 365 days as of yesterday, and that prompted me to make this video. I made a post on my social media asking if anybody had any questions or anything specifically they wanted me to talk about on this camera in this video. So I will be answering those questions, and I will also be telling you my true and honest thoughts on the Ricoh GR III. Let's just hop right into it. For anyone that doesn't know, the Ricoh GR III is a 24 megapixel APS-C crop sensor camera. There are a lot of downsides. There are a lot of good things about this camera. Over the last year, I've carried this camera almost everywhere I've went, and is one of the main reasons that brought love back into photography for me. It brought fun back into photography for me because it's a camera that you can just take everywhere you go. I think one of the biggest reasons that photography becomes unfun or kind of stale is because who wants to carry around huge cameras and lenses and gear and heavy backpacks everywhere you go, and it makes it kind of exhausting, right? You leave the house, you want to take a photo, and then it turns into being like, do I really want to carry my gear with me? The Ricoh brought that joy back into photography for me, especially being a street shooter, everyday shooter, lifestyle shooter. It's kind of fun to say, hey, I'm going to Target, I'll throw it in my bag, my pouch, my pocket, and I can just kind of go. Do I always see things that are magnificent? No, not really. But every now and then you come across a scene and you don't have a camera because you didn't feel like bringing your camera. When I come across a scene and I have the Ricoh with me, it's like, this was wonderful. For all of the strong suits, the camera does have a lot of drawbacks. There's no viewfinder. The LCD is relatively small. It's not weather sealed. It has a plastic housing, a plastic scroll wheel. Yeah, there's a lot of drawbacks on this camera, I'll be honest with you. It's also, I wouldn't say budget friendly. Maybe it is budget friendly. I don't really know what you're comparing it to. The other cameras similar to this on the market would be the X100V, which is $1,600. The RX100 II, which is, I don't know how much it costs. I'll put it right there. The Canon GX7 II, which I think is like $700, $800, I think. And the Ricoh GR3 comes in at a whopping $1,000. Let's talk about what you're getting for that $1,000. You're getting a powerhouse of a sensor. I cannot stress how fantastic the images are. I prefer the images out of this camera more than I do out of the Fuji X100 series, X100V, X106, whatever you want to call it, either one of them. This imagery and sensor just performs fantastic. I love the images that come out of the thing. It's sharp, the files are great, the colors are great. I don't know. I can never not praise how good the sensor is in this camera. The lens is also amazing. The lens renders very wonderfully. It's sharp all around. It's not too soft at 2.8. I don't shoot at 2.8 very often, but it's very, very sharp. It is a great lens. It is small. You can see when it extends from the body. Even when it's fully extended, it doesn't extend, but very, very shallowly. So it's still, shallowly, is that a word? But you get what I'm saying. It still doesn't take up very much space, even when you're out shooting if you add a lens hood or a filter thread or just whatever to it. There is no viewfinder on this camera. That is a big gripe from a lot of people. I don't necessarily find issue with there being no viewfinder. I have glasses. I don't know if any of you guys wear glasses. Sometimes I can't even see the full frame of the viewfinder for the EVF when I'm wearing my glasses. So I can't see it. I have to move the camera around anyway. Having a camera with no viewfinder on it and then being able to just see myself or see the scene as I take it in doesn't necessarily bother me. It bothers a lot of people. I get it. There's external viewfinders that you can buy. I don't see paying $200 for a piece of glass worth it. If it was an EVF viewfinder, maybe, but being a piece of glass, I just can't find the cost being worth the purchase, if that makes sense. It is not weather sealed. It's another big drawback for a lot of people. That doesn't bother me either. I've had this thing in the rain, I've had it in my bag, I've had it in my pocket, I've carried it with no lens cap, I've carried it with this little metal lens cap from Amazon, and I have no dust on the sensor. There's no issues. I've gotten it wet. There's no issues. I mean, if it was weather sealed, it'd be great. It's not. I think that'd be a great addition to the Ricoh GR4. Ricoh, you should take that in. But if it's not weather sealed, it is what it is. I've had no issues with it. It has not faltered on me. It hasn't done anything to me. Therefore, I think, why not just continue to use it? I know build quality is big for a lot of people, but I don't understand all of the, what if this happens? What if that happens? I mean, what if I get in my car and have an accident today? I don't think anyone ever gets in their car and they're scared to drive because they might have an accident, even though it's possible that could happen. Could I put this in my bag one day and it break? It might, but so could my Canon, so could my Sony. I might get in my car one day and drop my Sony. I mean, it doesn't matter. I think every camera could break. I don't think you should not get a camera because you're worried about the what ifs. I think you take away the fun. I think this camera, I've had so much fun with this camera that I couldn't imagine letting a what if stop me from realizing or utilizing my full potential. I've captured some of my favorite images I've ever made just on the spur of the moment, being at the movie theater, being at the museum, and just snapping a couple photos that end up being spectacular to me. So I think that outweighs the idea that I could potentially get dust on the sensor. And if I do, I'll cross that bridge when I get to it. I mean, I'm not saying buy one just to, get rid of it in the future, but I mean, put it through its paces. Why buy something and let it sit on the shelf because it's pretty? That's not the reason that we get into photography. That's not the reason that we take images. The reason we do it is because we want to go out and make something. So if you're going to get it, go out and make something with it. I think the build quality is okay. I'm not biased. I think it's a hard plastic. I was gonna say a magnesium, but I doubt it because the old Ricohs are made out of magnesium. I really doubt it. It does have a lot of plastic pieces. The battery door isn't the greatest. You know what I mean? The scroll wheels, these scroll wheels on the back, they're kind of fickle. Mine are fine, but I've also heard horror stories that the scroll wheels don't work. I've never had an issue with my scroll wheel. All of my buttons and housings and everything has always worked the way that it should, and I've never had any issue with the screens or the buttons, the snap focusing, anything. I think it's always worked well. And maybe I'm lucky. Maybe I'm different. Maybe I'm the one-off person. I don't know, but I've never had an issue with it. The focusing on this camera is okay. It's good. It's good. It's not bad. It's decent, right? I don't think it's particularly spectacular, especially if you shoot a Sony camera or a Canon or any full frame camera that has, high-end glass on it, then obviously it's going to be a fantastic camera. So it's really hard to judge. I can't put this up to a different camera because it's not the same wheelhouse, right? Could I compare this to my A7C II? No, because my A7C II is also double the cost of this with no lens. So it's like tomato, tomato. I don't understand the ridiculous comparisons, but the focusing is not bad. I like it. I use singular spot focus most of the time, and I've never really had an issue. I have never missed a shot that I wanted to get because something was moving too fast. So it works well for me. I will say in low light, it's a little bit lackluster, right? If we're shooting at nighttime, it hunts, it's slow. It does get pretty noisy if you get high in the ISO, which is to be expected. It may not be desirable, but I really don't shoot this camera in a lot of low light. And I do think that's probably one of the biggest drawbacks for me is the low light capabilities could be better. It leaves much to be desired, to be honest. This camera does feature IBIS. I don't think it's particularly necessary to have IBIS in a camera with a 28mm lens, but I do think it's cool. I have tested this camera and I've been able to shoot at 1/15 of a second handheld, and it's like not particularly bad. So I think that is a cool adjustment and capability for having IBIS in such a small bodied camera. One of the questions from my friends was film simulations. Do I use film simulations, and how are there, or how many are there? There are, I want to say 7 film simulations on this camera. There is if you guys can see, there we go. There's positive film, there's negative film, there's the custom film recipes, there's black and whites. There's a bunch of different film recipes that come stock and baked into this camera. I'll be honest with you, I really only use 2. I use positive film and high contrast black and white. Those 2 have me in an absolute chokehold, and those are the 2 film simulations that I use more than anything else. I do have a custom film sim that I use, and it is really just a play on the positive film that I've warmed up a little bit and added a little less contrast to make it a little bit flatter of an image and give it a more even tone. And that's really all I shoot on this camera. Another one of the questions I got was battery life and ergonomics. Ergonomics, to me, I think they're perfect. It does have a relatively small grip that I know gets a lot of flack from a lot of people that like super, super big grips, but you gotta think it's a very small camera. Do you really need a huge grip on such a small camera, right? It's small, like it's really easy to hold. I've never had an issue with holding it. Some people say they need a thumb grip on it. They have the hot shoe mount that has the little thumb grip. I don't really use it. I just place my thumb in the thumb holding compartment on the camera. It literally has a holder part. I usually carry it just like this. I turn it on, I shoot something, and then I literally turn it off and I'm gone with it. All the buttons I feel like are where they should be, and you don't really need two hands to operate it. I think you can operate everything with one hand. Could it be bigger of a camera? Yeah, but I wouldn't like the trade-off. I like the idea of being able to, and I do hold it with two hands, but I think if you were in a pinch and you had something, you could operate it with one hand and not really have any issues with that. Now, the battery life, however, is not very great. I'll be honest with you. I think Ricoh says the battery life is 300 shots, 400 shots. I could be wrong on that, but it doesn't last very long. It lasts me, I'd say a full day, maybe not a full day, 3/4 of a day, depending on how many hours you're shooting, but I'd say probably after like 4 or 5 hours, if you're not turning it off in between, you're probably gonna need a new battery. Now, Ricoh is pretty awesome because Ricoh puts 2 batteries in the box when you buy it. So it comes with an extra battery out of the box, so you always have 2. Would it be, I have 3, and I think that works out perfectly. I never go through more than 2 batteries in a day's shooting anyway. This is the battery size for the Ricoh, so it's a very small battery. It's not a very big battery in this camera, but it's not the greatest. Obviously, it doesn't last nearly as long as an old DSLR battery, so if you're gonna get one, stack up on the batteries. Okay, so I have a really good question. Shane, I appreciate this, bro. It says, is it better than my iPhone? Are the JPEGs good? Do I have to shoot RAW? That's really good. No, it's better than the iPhone for me. iPhone has a wide angle lens on the camera. I think the 28mm out of this blows the iPhone out of the water. I think it is no comparison that the lens on this camera is far superior to the lens on an iPhone. Are the JPEGs good? If you've ever seen me post any work, like I said previously in the video, it's gonna be a JPEG. I don't edit anything out of this camera. Even, this is gonna be a shock factor for the last question. Do I have to shoot RAW? I shot JPEG plus RAW probably my first like 6 months owning this camera. For the past 3 or 4 months, I shoot JPEG only. I no longer shoot RAW at all because I just don't find it necessary. I just do not find it necessary to shoot RAW. I know I'm gonna get a lot of flack for that. A lot of people are gonna say, but the files and the editing and you come back to it in 5 years. I don't care. In 5 years, I'll come back to this video and say, I was wrong, guys. If I was wrong, I won't do that. But I genuinely just do not care. I like the files, how they are, and everything I shoot comes out of this camera is enjoyable to me. I do not need to shoot RAW. I did shoot RAW, like I said. I did shoot RAW, like I said, for the first 6 months, and I just didn't find myself ever editing it. I never went back to edit the RAWs, almost never. I was so satisfied with the JPEG that I just didn't see the need to just continue to load my card and storage with RAW files that I was never touching. So I went straight to JPEG. I've never looked back, and I've honestly never been happier about it. It does not bother me at all. I shoot RAW on all my other cameras. This is the one camera that I shoot JPEG only. If you're comparing this to an iPhone, Shane, bro, this blows it out. I mean, the iPhone you have with you every day, but like I said earlier, to me, it isn't much difference than just carrying it in your pocket with the iPhone, or like I said, in a small bag, and kind of fits the one to be all to me. It just kind of fits all purposes, and I think that's a little bit easier. Next question, the menu settings. It's the one thing that drives me crazy. I'll be honest with you. The menu settings don't really bother me. I actually don't have an issue with the menu. I think it's super easy to navigate. Everything is where it should be. It's not particularly a large menu. Unlike, like I said, it's like the Sony's menus are insane. So to me, I think the menu is like, it's pretty fine. So with that being said, I like the Ricoh a lot. I'm not biased towards it. There's things that could be done to improve this camera. There's things that I think are just fine. I love how it maintains the shape, and it's almost the same size as the original Ricoh GR I film cameras. I think it's great. Like I said, could they add an EVF to it? Yes. I think if they did, it'd probably be so small that it might not even be worth it, and it might be just kind of in the way. I could do with or without an EVF. The weather sealing, Ricoh, please weather seal this camera. I think a lot of the gripes that people get would be solved if it was weather sealed. If someone didn't have to worry about the dust on the sensor, I think that would ease a lot of people's minds and they wouldn't be so on the fence about the camera. Overall, I think it's a fantastic camera. I think for the big whopping $1,000 that you pay for this camera, I think it is more than worth the dollar amount for a fixed lens, everyday travel carry camera. Yeah, so what are your thoughts on the Ricoh GR3? Do you want one? Do you have one? Have you been wanting to get one, but you're kind of on the fence? Hope this video helped. Would you guys do me a favor? Smash that like button for your boy, share it, leave a comment. Until next time, you guys be easy.